wins. It's just that in that fight, I don't know. I just didn't really see, you know, a great showing. Maybe that was it. That's kind of coloring my vision, and that this guy could definitely be a potential to win. The record seems to indicate it, but I can't find the fight with Lyles, which would be the one that would probably impress me. Chad Reiner, I've never been impressed with. Kaisi Ice Cold, you scold, the most veteran fighter in the house for sure. 18-15. Most of his losses are to notable competition. Kyle Noak, who we talked about earlier. Michael Joker Guyman, currently in the UFC. Professor X, Xavier Fopapakam, former UFC fighter. Chael Sonnen, currently in the UFC. Gegard Mousasi. Shiro Gonzalez. Brendan Senguin, who's a pretty good fighter. Trevor Prangley, formerly of the UFC. Emmanuel Newton, who's a guy who you might see in the UFC at some point. Former tough competitor. Brandon Melendez. Joey Dream Smasher Via Senor. Jamie Jara, Josh Berkman, you know, pretty decent guys to lose to, all considered. His only really notable wins are Logan Kincaid and Brian Foster. Not the Brian Foster fighting in the UFC. There's two of them, which is weird. Nonetheless, his record doesn't show you how good he is. He's reasonably large at middleweight. I think actually he's been fighting more or less at 205 most of his career. He's fought a lot of guys that he probably shouldn't have fought, as he said. Um, he's definitely a guy who'll never turn down a fight, and I'm waiting for the first person to try to make him out to be a bitch in the house, honestly. That could be amusing, because this man will fight anyone. He is anything but a bitch. In terms of his skill set, he's pretty much a striker guy. He's got some wrestling, he's got some submission skills, but it's really the kickboxing game is where he's at home. Problem is, if he runs up against Kyle Noak or Nick Ring, I think he loses. I think he may even lose to Chris Camozzi, but we'll see. It's hard to really place him. Joseph Henley is a sub-expert. Had probably one of the most impressive wins to get in the house over Konstantinos Philippou, who I thought was a good chance to win this, but got tapped. Aside from that, Henley doesn't have all the skills. He's pretty cool under combat. He's got good submission skills, but I think some of the good wrestlers will pretty much nullify him. Rick Atenito, he beat Greg Rebello, who was, I think, a guy who I really wanted to see what he could do. So I'm a little bit angry about that. He has losses to Ishiro Valdez and Bristol Morunde in terms of notables. Also has a loss to some guy named Mike Marshall. In terms of notable wins, he has none. He's 7-3. He's an American top team guy, very good wrestler. Don't really know about his other skills, though. They seem to be his striking defense particularly seems to be somewhat lacking. Josh Bryant, 10-0, notable win over Danny Valimaki. That's about it. He's a wrestler, and that's kind of all I have to say about him. I'm kind of rushing because I'm running out of time. Charles Blanchard, 7-2. Notable opponents include Ben Saunders and Jim Wallhead. He beat Jim Wallhead, lost to Ben Saunders. Basically another wrestler again with some decently vicious ground and pound. Then there's one last guy to talk about here. Clayton McKinney, he's much too small, otherwise I would really like his chances. His two losses are to very good fighters in Steve Bruno and Danilo Villafort. He has no real notable wins, but he's a guy who on a technical level I think could do it, but he's too small. I may have to divide this into two videos. Anyways, that's the actually I'm going to throw in the coach's review because this is probably going to have to end up as two videos. Coaches wise, we got Tito going up against Chuck. Chuck's coaches are Howard Davis Jr., Jake Shields, John Hackelman. I think that's it. Just a quick check. Oh, he has Scott Epstein as well. Howard Davis Jr. is a very, very good boxing coach. He's a very good boxer in his own right. Obviously retired now. Jake Shields is the best grappling coach this season. John Hackelman's a good guy to put it all together. Scott Epstein's got some wrestling credentials. That's a good. I think he has the advantage in coaching this time. In Tito's corner, you got Saul Solis, excellent boxing coach. You got Razor Rob McCullough, who's a good kickboxer. But if you look at who he trains with, I don't really think he's a good coach because none of his pupils really do anything. And he has Kleber Liciano. Never heard of him. So not as impressed with his coaching staff as I was when he faced Shamrock, because then he brought Saul Solis and Dean Lister, which I thought was awesome, but not this time apparently. Guys, I'm kind of disappointed to see leave the house because I thought they could have made this season. Constantinos Philippou, as I mentioned, Victor O'Donnell, Charlie Lynch, Greg Rebello. These are guys that I was looking to see what they could do. And unfortunately, they will not get their chance on the show. Unless someone gets injured and cannot continue. Clayton McKinney had his shoulder in a sling, but it appears like he will be able to go on because he's in the previews playing chess, and he doesn't have the sling on and trash talking people. So probably will be in there. So pick to win, Noke. Dark horses are Clayton McKinney because I think he is very good, but he is small. Nick Ring is the dark horse. Kaisi Escola, I would have to say, is a dark horse because I know he's the guy who's going to put up with a lot of stuff. And Chris Camozzi and Jamie Yeager are my other two dark horse picks that, could surprise some people. And that's all.